Thousands of supporters from the MAS await the arrival of former Bolivian President Evo Morales on Monday. Biden arrived this Sunday at the Brandywine church in his hometown Wilmington, a day after being declared the projected winner of the November 3rd polls. India and China has held the 8th bilateral military talks aimed at easing border tensions. Hello, welcome to From the South. My name is Gladys Quesada from the teleSUR headquarters in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Stay with us. In the Bolivian city of Villazón, on the border with Argentina, people are expectantly waiting for the arrival of former President Evo Morales to his country on Monday. In the main square of the Bolivian city of Villazón, preparations are made for the reception of party of former President Evo Morales, who is set to arrive this Monday after receiving political asylum in Argentina after the November coup d'etat last year. Delegations from different social sectors, as well as indigenous leaders of Ecuador, Argentina, Chile and Peru, have reached this border for the reception of former President Evo Morales. Supporters of Morales are gathered at this border for Morales' arrival. The former president confirmed he will return from exile on Monday, a day after his successor, Luis Arce of the Movement Towards Socialist Party, assumed the presidency.
We have felt like orphans with our father, but now our father is returning.
Tomorrow, the doors will open here in Villazón to welcome our brother and President Evo Morales Aima, an international leader who has definitely changed Bolivian history and revolutionary processes in the continent and across the world.
Bolivia's Luis Arce has been sworn in as president, while David Choquehuanca has taken the oath as vice president in the city of La Paz. The ceremony has officially ended an almost 12-month-long U.S.-backed coup headlined by Janine Áñez and marks the restoration of democracy. Arce served as economy minister under former President Evo Morales, who is set to return to Bolivia after living in exile in Argentina since being ousted in last year's coup.
Despite our difference, we are obliged to live up to the expectations of the nation, who demand unity, peace and certainty, unity and complementarity between East and West, between countryside and the city. We are all Bolivians. We must put an end to fear in Bolivia.
Vice President Choquehuanca said it is now time for Bolivians to unite.
Bolivians must overcome this division, yet racism and discrimination among fellow citizens, no more persecution over freedom of speech, no more abuse of power. Power must be given in order to help others. Power needs to take turns, and just like the economy, it needs to be redistributed. No more impunity. We need justice, brothers, but justice must be truly independent. Let's remove intolerance, the violation of human rights and Mother Nature's rights. This new era means we must listen to the word of our people, which comes from the depth of their hearts. This means we must heal our wounds, to look at each other with respect and recover our country.
Meanwhile, Morales and his vice president Álvaro García Linera have arrived in Jujuy on their first stop before reaching Bolivia. They landed at the Horacio Guzmán Airport of San Salvador de Jujuy and met indigenous political prisoner Milagro Sala. And this Sunday, after the inauguration of Luis Arce as constitutional president of Bolivia, some Bolivian citizens living in Chile gathered around the consulate of the South American country to celebrate the appointment of the new leaders of the plurinational state. Demonstrators gathered with posters and flags in support of MAS, chanting slogans in favor of the swearing of Luis Arce and David Choquehuanca as the new leaders of the country's government. The demonstrators considered relevant the declarations of the president, who during his swearing-in ceremony stressed that his government will leave discrimination behind and give priority to unity and democracy.
This year, our democracy has been humiliated by fascism. Also, racism has grown. The people have patiently waited and through the polls decide that they do not want fascism. 54% of Bolivians have decided that the path we have been following in the process of the plurinational state is the future we want.
We're here to celebrate the victory of our winning pair, Lucho and David, which means the return of democracy in our country after a year of a de facto government that entered after a coup d'etat that destroyed the economy and society and left us a country divided and disaster. Today we recover our democracy and we are here to say, long live Bolivia.
And the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, congratulated Luis Arce for his swearing-in as the country's new constitutional president.
Evo Morales Aima was sworn in. Luis Arce was sworn in. I talked with him by phone yesterday to reaffirm our loyalty to him, to our support. Brother Luis Arce, Brother David Choquehuanca, President and Vice President of the plurinational state of Bolivia. Today was a beautiful act, with a lot of popular symbolism in the streets, inside the Legislative Assembly of the Congress. Extraordinary speech by Luis Arce, a solid speech from the conceptual, doctrinal, political, ideological and cultural point of view. The speech of Choquehuanca was solid. Evo Morales sowed infertile land, and there the decision taken by Evo Morales as Indian leader of the South, as revolutionary leader of postulating Luis Arce and David Choquehuanca was totally right, and the people followed him with 55% of the votes. A great victory in Bolivia, and today they assume command.
President Maduro also announced that after the swearing-in ceremony, Venezuela will appoint a new ambassador to the country.
I sent Foreign Minister Jorge Arriaza, head of the presidential delegation of Venezuela, with a letter asking for the pleasure of the new ambassador of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela in Bolivia, new Deputy Foreign Minister Alexandre Yanes, new ambassador of Venezuela to the plurinational state of Bolivia.
And Nicolás Maduro reiterated that the coup against former President of Bolivia, Evo Morales, was directly backed by U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo.
We already visualized what the coup was unleashed, because a year ago, a day as today, was the uprising of the police groups demanding Evo's resignation. The coup led by Mike Pompeo of the United States of America, a coup with the brand of Mike Pompeo of the Donald Trump administration. The order was to overthrow Evo and kill him, was the order given by the United States.
And we'll go now to a short break. Follow us in Twitter at teleSUR English and also in teleSUR W and in Twitter.
teleSUR English presents a weekly program to discuss the political, economic and social issues affecting the Caribbean community. We'll challenge stereotypes and unpack the diversity of the region through the analysis of unique cultures, religions and art. We Caribbean. Wednesdays, only on teleSUR. Innovation, science, the technological breakthrough and its influence in society.
Viajeros del saber, el futuro está aquí.
Atomy. Monday, only on teleSUR.
Welcome back to From the South. This Sunday, U.S. President-elect Joe Biden arrived at St. Joseph of the Brandywine Church in his hometown Wilmington, Delaware, a day after being declared the projected winner of the November 3rd polls by various media outlets. Biden has praised Black Americans whom he said propelled him to victory. He also promised to join forces with scientists to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic, a move that overrules his predecessor policies towards the health crisis. The celebrations are also significant due to the winning of Kamala Harris, who became the first woman, also the first woman of color, and the first daughter of immigrants to be elected as vice president. The new leaders launched a transition website, buildbackbetter.com, and a Twitter feed at Transition46. The President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, has congratulated President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris. She also stressed the EU's willingness to strengthen the ties with the new administration.
The European Union stands ready to intensify cooperation with the new administration and with the new US Congress. Together, we will address pressing global challenges. The corona pandemic and its economic consequences, climate change and the loss of biodiversity, the necessary rule book for the digital economy and society, global security, and the reform of the rules-based multilateral system.
From the Caribbean, former CARICOM chair and Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley expressed optimism in future relations with the United States as she's congratulated Biden and Harris.
America has spoken and the world is inspired. The people and government of Barbados warmly congratulate President-elect Joe Biden and his Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, the first woman and person of color to hold that position. I am sure that we in the Caribbean will look forward with optimism to working with the new administration to confront a number of global issues, from the awful pandemic to the climate crisis which we face to the pursuit of racial justice. There is much work for the world to do if we are to lift up our people across the globe to fight these issues that know no boundaries but require character and leadership to defeat them. Well done, President-elect Joe Biden.
Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister also saluted Biden and Harris on their election victory. Dr. Keith Rowley said the Caribbean is filled with pride since Harris is the daughter of a Jamaican father. He also said that he looks forward to enforce economic and security ties with Washington. And Jamaican Prime Minister Andrew Holness praised the U.S. President and Vice President-elect. He said he was proud that Kamala Harris bears Jamaican heritage, adding that their victory is a monumental accomplishment for women all over the world. In addition, Holness said he looked forward to working with the Biden administration. Palestinians in the city of Ramallah do not foresee any change in the United States Middle East foreign policy after Joe Biden's election victory. They said during his term in office, Donald Trump advanced policies that favored the interests of Israel at the expense of the rights of Palestinians. In 2018, he recognized Jerusalem as Israel's undivided capital, moving the U.S. embassy to the city, breaking international consensus. He also officially endorsed Israel's occupation of the Golan Heights.
As a Palestinian, I say that the political outlines are the same, only the faces change. Whether it is Trump or Biden or anyone else other than them, American policy is the same for us as a Palestinians and for the Israelis. His policy was clear and frank. He was with Israeli heart and soul, and he did what Israel wants. I say that Biden will also do what Israel wants, but from under the table.
And thousands of families have been evacuated to temporary shelters in Guatemala after landslides and floods hit the region following the passage of Tropical Storm Ida. About 150 people have been reported dead on Friday, and several more remain missing in an indigenous village in the country's north. Category 4 Hurricane Ida hit Central America last week, killing several people and leaving a trail of destruction to infrastructure.
They evacuated us at about 10 at night very quickly because the Motagua River and the San Francisco River were rising.
After this, we only ask God to give us patience because everything has been lost. Our beds, things, the water has taken it away.
And Tropical Storm Ida brought strong winds and torrential rain to Cuba on Sunday. Its maximum sustained winds were around 100 kilometers per hour. Heavy rains were reported in the eastern half of the country, where authorities have evacuated dozens of people due to the risk of flooding.
We are ready in my house. I live here. We fill the water tanks, the tank on the roof and the other one. My sister went to look for bread. I went for butter. I search and search, and we are getting ready, and all is well. We bought pumpkin to make a broth. We are ready. Us Cubans are made of iron.
We have to get ready for this. We have to prepare for the situation. We must do what needs to be done.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Sean todos muy bienvenidos a Vidas. Hay lugares donde el arte se unifica con el orgullo de los pueblos. Y esos lugares están llenos de colores, alegría, pasión, tradiciones, arraigo, valor y entrega.
Real Life. Fridays. Only on teleSUR.
Acompañamos a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Somos esa ventana que se abre para visibilizarlos entre fronteras.
Thursdays, only on teleSUR.
Welcome back to From the South. During the 8th round of military talks between India and China, the countries agreed to keep on holding talks through military and diplomatic channels to guarantee peace in border areas. The announcement of the talks and its outcome was informed by the Indian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Chinese Ministry of the National Defense this Sunday. The talks were held on Friday, again with the aim of easing bilateral tension along the border in Chusul, a border dispute that began in May 2020 and which has triggered tensions involving the armies of both countries. In Thailand, protesters continue to demand a reform in the monarchy and the resignation of Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha. Ministers of citizens along with student movements gathered this Sunday in the nearby areas of Bangkok's Grand Palace, urging King Maha Vajiralongkorn to start a dialogue over a monarchy reform demanded by protesters. And also they accuse the monarchy of influencing the country's military power for several decades. And the Japanese Emperor Naruhito has officially proclaimed his younger brother Prince Akishino the first in order of succession. The ceremony for the 54-year-old crown prince concludes a series of imperial succession rituals of the world's oldest monarchy. It began in May last year when Naruhito ascended to the throne after the 86-year-old father Akihito abdicated. The traditional ceremony, which was due to take place in April last year, has been postponed due to the coronavirus pandemic. Global coronavirus infections exceeded 50 million on Sunday, with a second wave of the virus in the past month, accounting for a quarter of the total. October was the worst month for the pandemic so far, with the United States becoming the first country to report more than 100,000 daily cases. A surge in Europe contributed to the rise. The latest 7-day average shows global daily infections are rising by more than 540,000. More than 1.25 million people have died from the respiratory disease that emerged in China last year. According to the Johns Hopkins University, tally are at 50,313,694 cases of COVID-19 around the world. The head of the United Kingdom's Armed Forces on Sunday stressed the possibility of a new world war as various smaller conflicts are escalated, also during an economic crisis caused by COVID-19 that, according to General Sir Nick Carter, may result in security threats.
History might not repeat rhythm, and if you look back at the last century, before both world wars, I think it was unarguable that there was escalation that led to the miscalculation which ultimately led to war at a scale we would hopefully never see again. Risks. And that's why remembrance matters, because if you look back at history, hopefully you learn from their experience and you make sure that you're very cautious about how you manage the sorts of regional conflicts that we see playing out in the world. The history might...
And Britain fell silent on Sunday in tribute to its war dead as royals and politicians commemorated a low-key Remembrance Day without the usual pomp due to the coronavirus pandemic. The country observed a 2-minute silence at 11 a.m., the time on November 11 when the guns stopped firing in the World War I after years of horrifying fighting. A national worth-laying ceremony took place at the Cenotaph War Memorial in London. This year's ceremony marks the 102nd Remembrance Day service commemorating the end of the World War I at the 75th anniversary since the end of the Second World War. This Sunday, the local authorities of the Canary Islands announced that they boarded a vessel with more than 1,600 African immigrants to the Spanish archipelago. The spokesperson for the emergency service informed that among the nearly 2,000 people who arrived to the islands on Tenerife, El Hierro and the Canary Islands, one person was reported dead. Local authorities detailed that there was a new record in the migratory waves compared to the previous month that counted more than 1,000 migrants in just 48 hours. According to the Ministry of the Interior, migration figures have been raised as a result of the reactivation of the European Union border agreements with Turkey, Libya and Morocco.
We don't even count the numbers because the plane leaves and the ship leaves and they find 4 or 5 at the same time. Last night, at the end of the night, they saw and placed 4 boats together. It's tremendous what is going on, but well, here we are.
Now, what we understand is that above the Salvamar, Mencalinan has 88 people on board and goes for another. We don't know if it is the 4th or if it is the 5th or the 3rd, but what I have been told is that until 10 minutes ago they had 88 people on board and they were going for another one.
And we have come to the end of this news brief, but remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also, if you feel so inclined, join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.